Hotlanta is even more sweltering in these neighborhoods due to a racist 20th century policy. The windows are painted shut, Scott said. We come outside at night to sleep because it's too hot inside. Like Scott, residents in the low-income communities across South and Southwest Atlanta are struggling to cope with the hottest summer since the Dust Bowl. It's just so hot, Scott said as she wiped sweat from her brow. Heat waves are the most lethal weather-related disaster in America. And these health risks are not distributed equally. During extreme heat events, a few city blocks can mean the difference between a manageable 80-degree afternoon or a sweltering, 100-degree sweat fest. The staggering temperature difference is due in large part to historical redlining, a federal government-sanctioned effort that began in the 1930s that amplified segregation by denying loans and insurance to potential home buyers in poorer neighborhoods and neighborhoods of color. While the racist practice was banned in the late 1960s, its effect is still apparent. Across America's largest cities, black homeowners are nearly 5 times more likely than white families to own homes in these historically redlined communities, according to a study by Redfin. These communities, like where Scott resides in South Atlanta, endure the greatest burdens of our rapidly warming planet, and now tend to be the hottest and poorest areas.
Extreme heat threatens the health and well-being of underserved communities today, while predominantly white neighborhoods reap the cooler benefits of decades of investment. Keeping the lights on is hard enough financially for Scott, and so many other disadvantaged community members, let alone having access to reliable air conditioning. Confronting environmental racism. Some cities, like New Orleans and New York City, suffer from the worst urban heat in the nation, according to a recent study by Climate Central. Atlanta, affectionately known as Hotlanta, is also particularly hot. As we think about global challenges like climate change, this is one of the issues that disproportionately impacts Black and other communities of color, Jelks said. So, it's very important that we are at the table. Black people are 40% more likely to live in areas with the largest projected increase in heat-related deaths if the planet reaches 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial temperatures, according to a recent EPA report. This rises to 59% if the planet reaches 4 degrees Celsius. In August, global scientists said warming had already reached approximately 1.2 degrees Celsius and showed no signs of slowing. People like Scott are the reason that NOAA's National Integrated Heat Health Information System campaign has been mapping America's urban heat islands since 2017. This community-led, multi-city program has helped city planners identify and map the hottest neighborhoods of American cities. The urban heat island effect occurs when a city's unshaded pavement and buildings absorb heat from the sun during the day and radiate that heat into the surrounding air. This can make even average summer days feel unbearable in dense urban environments, especially to those without access to reliable cooling like Scott. Jelks and Guanyu Wang, an assistant professor of environmental and health sciences at Spelman College and the local leader of Atlanta's heat mapping campaign, are both very passionate about this work. They are hopeful that the data will result in changes in the city in which they both reside. So, this data will actually help people in Atlanta, especially in the downtown area or intercity area, the people who are actually suffering from heat and also don't have access to an AC system, Wang said. Other cities that have been part of the NOAA heat mapping campaign have taken the results and made changes, such as planting more trees or adding more parks to areas that are suffering from the worst heat. The inequities in green space is striking as you traverse Atlanta. Driving through Scott's neighborhood, there are fewer and smaller parks than nearby neighborhoods that are predominantly white, and natural shade from trees is also lacking. Despite being called a city in the forest where trees are abundant across much of the Atlanta metro, heat inequality remains. This study is personal. Breonna Findley, a former Atlanta resident and a volunteer for the Urban Heat Island campaign, has experience with the inequity. She has witnessed firsthand her community's lack of access to air conditioning and shaded green space. Findley says she and her family endured countless heat waves in Atlanta when they were there. And it seems to only be getting hotter. When I was taking a temperature reading for that specific day, we had higher temperatures when it came to low tree cover areas, with more infrastructure and more asphalt on the road, finally said. It was extremely hot, you can feel it. It wasn't something that was hidden. Like, you felt the temperatures. This campaign is personal for Findlay after her own grandmother experienced signs of heat stroke. It was like one of the hottest days in Georgia. And we went out and we were out walking around the shopping mall center, and we had to go home because you could see, like one side of her face was going down, Findlay explained. She was having slurred speech. It was very hard to see that. I was very scared. The human body is highly sensitive to heat. Extreme heat on its own can cause heat exhaustion and heat stroke, but it can also worsen underlying conditions like heart and lung problems, obesity, and diabetes, among other health issues. These pre-existing conditions decrease the body's ability to adapt to environmental changes like high temperatures, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. She's okay. But we definitely don't let her go outside that much, especially when it's hot out there, Findlay said. Like, Grandma, you need to stay inside today and do some inside activities. It could get worse in general. Temperatures across much of the contiguous US are warming and city environments are experiencing the brunt of the heat due to these urban heat islands. The warming trend is apparent in a new NOAA analysis of average weather. In Atlanta, the city now averages 11 more 90-degree, or hotter, days in the summer, compared to the old 30-year average. Salt Lake City averages 10 more days at 90 degrees or above, and Houston gained 9 days. See how the climate crisis has changed weather in your city. Once the urban heat islands are mapped, city planners will have more tools to combat environmental inequalities, which experts say will only be exacerbated by the climate crisis.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.